As tensions escalate between the United States and China, the latest round of trade retaliations has ignited concerns over a potential resurgence of a full-blown trade war. Beginning February 10, 2025, China will implement new tariffs ranging from 10% to 15% on a variety of U.S. products, including crude oil, liquefied natural gas, and agricultural machinery. This move comes in direct response to President Donald Trump's recent decision to impose a 10% tariff on all Chinese imports, a strategy aimed at compelling Beijing to take more robust action against the flow of fentanyl precursors into the United States. The announcement of these tariffs has prompted a strong reaction from Chinese officials. Guo Jiakun, a spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, emphasized at a press conference that there are no winners in a trade war or a tariff war, highlighting the detrimental effects such conflicts have on both nations' citizens. Guo called for bilateral dialogue based on equality and mutual respect, urging the U.S. to cease its wrongful actions. However, China's response extends beyond mere tariffs. In a strategic maneuver, Chinese authorities have launched an antitrust investigation into Google and added several U.S. firms to a blacklist of unreliable entities. This broader approach includes tightening export controls on vital rare metals, which are crucial for technology supply chains, a warning that China can escalate its response significantly if tensions continue to rise. Harry Murphy-Cruz, head of China economics at Moody's Analytics, interprets these actions as a calculated warning from Beijing. He stated it is China saying, "We don't want to make the situation worse, and so our response is going to be quite restrained relative to what we could do." This restraint signifies an awareness of the delicate balance between showing strength and avoiding further escalation. Historically, China has matched U.S. tariff rates with proportional responses. However, this time the effective tariff rate on American imports remains notably lower than the tariffs imposed on Chinese goods. The backdrop to this renewed conflict is a challenging economic landscape for both nations. China is grappling with a sluggish economy marked by a real estate crisis, soaring debt levels, and deflation. Meanwhile, analysts in the U.S. are increasingly concerned that rising inflation could temper the Trump administration's eagerness to impose additional tariffs, particularly as he hinted at potential tariffs exceeding 25% on steel and aluminum imports, as well as on products from Taiwan and Europe. As the situation continues to unfold, uncertainty looms over the timing and potential outcomes of future discussions between President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. According to Murphy-Cruz, the biggest unknown is when will President Xi and President Trump meet and discuss, and where do those discussions go? It's really unclear. The risk of a tit-for-tat escalation remains palpable, echoing the tumultuous trade dynamics of Trump's first term. In a broader context, these trade tensions reflect significant geopolitical shifts and the complexities of international relations. As both countries navigate the thorny issues of tariffs and trade practices, the implications of their decisions will reverberate far beyond their borders, impacting global markets and supply chains. The path forward remains uncertain, but the stakes are undeniably high as both nations confront the realities of their economic interdependence and the rising tide of protectionism. Looking ahead, the international community will be watching closely to see whether dialogue can prevail over discord or if the trade war will deepen, reshaping the global economic landscape. In a rapidly evolving geopolitical landscape, the ongoing tensions between the United States and China are reaching new heights, particularly as economic policies and trade relations become battlegrounds for national interests. Recent developments reflect this escalating rivalry, with the U.S. administration poised to announce significant tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, aiming to combat what it perceives as China's overproduction. Scheduled for announcement on Monday, former President Trump's proposed 25% tariffs are part of a broader strategy to address trade imbalances and protect American industries from foreign competition. As the world watches, the implications of these tariffs resonate beyond the U.S.-China dynamic. According to experts, the tariffs could trigger retaliatory measures from Beijing, which is already implementing its own targeted levies against U.S. goods. The careful dance of economic sanctions and countersanctions underscores the fragile nature of international trade relationships, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region, where countries like Vietnam and Mexico are emerging as potential facilitators for goods rerouted to avoid tariffs. The ramifications of these trade policies extend into the realm of international relations. For instance, Turkey's President Erdogan recently urged Israel to bear the costs of rebuilding Gaza, a move that complicates diplomatic ties in an already volatile region. Concurrently, China's assertive diplomatic maneuvers, such as the Cook Islands Prime Minister's visit amidst tensions with New Zealand, highlight the shifting alliances and influence in the South Pacific. Amidst these geopolitical shifts, concerns about domestic stability are surfacing within China itself. A striking report revealed a 20% drop in marriages in 2024, raising alarm over the nation's declining birth rate and the potential long-term impact on its economy. Analysts suggest that economic stagnation and shifting societal norms are fueling this demographic crisis, which could have profound implications for China's labor market and social support systems. On the technological front, China is also grappling with the implications of its rapid advancements in artificial intelligence. The rise of DeepSeek, an AI startup that offers low-cost alternatives to Western technologies, has not only drawn attention for its innovative solutions but also raised concerns about data privacy and national security. South Korea's intelligence agency recently criticized DeepSeek for excessively collecting personal data, highlighting the delicate balance between technological advancement and ethical considerations in AI development. As the U.S. seeks to fortify its own technological edge, discussions around talent retention and the potential brain drain from China loom large. Experts note that the competitive landscape for top tech talent is intensifying, with the U.S. modifying its policies to attract more global expertise. This shift could lead to a significant outflow of skilled professionals from China, undermining the country's long-term ambitions in the tech sector. The intersection of trade policy, international diplomacy, and technological innovation paints a complex picture of the future. As nations navigate these turbulent waters, the potential for further conflict remains high, yet so does the opportunity for collaboration in addressing shared challenges. Looking ahead, the global community must brace for an ongoing reshaping of alliances, economies, and tech landscapes, all while keeping a close eye on the unfolding drama of U.S.-China relations and its ripple effects across the globe. The rise of lung cancer cases among never smokers, coupled with the economic recalibrations in China, highlights critical developments in both public health and international trade. A recent global analysis led by the World Health Organization has revealed a concerning trend. Despite a worldwide decline in tobacco consumption, lung cancer incidences among individuals who have never smoked are on the rise, particularly in China. This alarming statistic underscores the growing threat of air pollution, which has been identified as a significant risk factor. The study indicates that younger generations and women are especially vulnerable, prompting urgent calls for improved air quality standards and public health initiatives. In tandem with health concerns, China's economic trajectory is under scrutiny as the country approaches the midway point of its 14th five-year plan. While researchers from Tsinghua University report that China has successfully met most of its five-year targets, the nation has fallen short in critical areas such as energy efficiency and emissions reductions. This discrepancy raises questions about the sustainability of China's rapid economic growth and its long-term environmental impact. Scholar Jing Xian has recently weighed in on the topic of right-sizing China's economy, particularly in the context of shifting global dynamics influenced by the Trump administration. Chen argues that the Made in China 2025 initiative could yield dividends despite the complex geopolitical landscape. He posits that the contradictions in U.S. policy could inadvertently create opportunities for China to strengthen bilateral relations, suggesting that economic adjustments are necessary to adapt to these new realities. On the international front, rising tensions between China and the United States are manifesting in retaliatory trade measures. following the Trump administration's decision to impose a 10% tariff on a range of Chinese goods aimed at pressuring Beijing to curtail the flow of synthetic opioids. China is set to implement its own counter-tariffs impacting products such as crude oil and liquefied natural gas. As Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Guo Jiakun noted, there are no winners in a trade war, urging for dialogue rather than unilateral actions. The current trade friction is particularly troubling for China, which is already grappling with a sluggish economy marked by a real estate crisis and escalating debt levels. Experts like Harry Murphy-Cruz from Moody's Analytics remind us that while China's response to U.S. tariffs has been measured, the potential for escalation remains, with President Trump signaling further tariffs, including a proposed 25% duty on steel and aluminum imports. The risk of a tit-for-tat trade war looms large. As these developments unfold, the implications for public health and international trade are profound. The increasing incidence of lung cancer among never-smokers in China calls for urgent policy interventions to address air quality, while the economic landscape is shifting under the pressures of global trade dynamics. Moving forward, both the health of the nation and its economic stability will depend on the ability of policymakers to navigate these complex challenges effectively. The interplay between health, environment, and economics will likely shape China's future, demanding a careful balance between growth and sustainability. In a significant move towards enhancing control over online military content, China has instituted new regulations that will reshape how military-related information is disseminated across the Internet. Announced by the Cyberspace Administration of China. Alongside 9 other government departments, these sweeping measures are set to take effect on March 1, 2025, and will impose strict identity checks and special markers on social media accounts that cover the People's Liberation Army (PLA) and defense topics. The new guidelines come amid growing concerns from Chinese leadership regarding the management of military narratives in cyberspace. Despite the popularity of military content among Chinese internet users, the government is eager to prevent sensitive information and speculation from undermining official narratives about the nation's military capabilities. The regulations, which consist of 30 articles, encompass a wide array of platforms, including dedicated military websites and themed social media accounts. They mandate that all military-related channels maintain the correct political orientation and adhere to specific public opinion guidance, emphasizing a favorable portrayal of the military. According to Article 8 of the new rules, operators of military-themed accounts will face rigorous verification processes. They must undergo identity authentication and display designated identification markers, effectively regulating how military terms and symbols are used online. Such stringent measures come in response to previous concerns about the misuse of state media branding, as noted by state media last year. The government's tightening grip on military discourse reflects its broader efforts to maintain a cohesive narrative around China's military development amidst a rapidly changing geopolitical landscape. The implications of these regulations extend beyond mere content control. They signify a strategic pivot in how China aims to manage its military image domestically and internationally. By enforcing these guidelines, Beijing seeks to ensure that online discourse aligns with state policies, potentially stifling independent voices and limiting public debate about the military. The increased scrutiny over military content may also serve as a deterrent to foreign entities looking to engage with Chinese military discussions online. As China continues to enhance its military capabilities juxtaposed with a desire to project power, the interplay of hard and soft power remains critical. In recent years, China has significantly boosted its military expenditure, which reached approximately $233 billion in 2024, a 7.2% increase from the previous year. This budgetary growth underscores China's commitment to modernizing its military and expanding its influence, especially in the Indo-Pacific region. However, the new regulations highlight an underlying challenge: China's struggle with soft power. While Beijing possesses formidable military capabilities, its efforts to project cultural and political influence globally have faced hurdles. The rigidity of its political institutions and the ideological divide with Western nations have hampered its ability to generate goodwill and recognition for its cultural narrative. As a result, the new regulations on military content may also be interpreted as an attempt to bolster domestic support for the military by controlling the narrative surrounding it. In conclusion, as China embarks on this new regulatory journey, the effectiveness of these measures in shaping public perception and reinforcing state narratives remains to be seen. The evolving landscape of military discourse online will undoubtedly reflect broader geopolitical tensions, with future developments likely influenced by both domestic policies and international relations. As the global community watches, the balance between military strength and soft power will remain a focal point in understanding China's ambitions on the world stage. In an increasingly complex geopolitical landscape, South Korea is redefining its economic and diplomatic relationships, particularly with China and the United States. Contrary to the prevailing narrative that portrays South Korea as being trapped between its historical ally the US and its largest trading partner China, a new perspective is emerging. This shift indicates that South Korea possesses more leverage over China than previously thought, allowing it to assert its interests without succumbing to economic dependency. Historically, South Korea's economic ties with China have been significant. In 2023, China and Hong Kong accounted for nearly a quarter of South Korea's exports. Yet this interdependence is asymmetric. While South Korea relies heavily on China for trade, the reverse is not true. Ramon Pacheco Pardo, a professor of international relations at King's College London, argues that this economic relationship is evolving into a more balanced dynamic. As South Korean policymakers and business leaders reassess their positions, there is a growing recognition that the nation does not need to merely appease China to maintain economic stability. The economic landscape has changed dramatically over the past few years. Exports to China peaked in 2018 but have since declined, while investments have shifted towards the US. In 2023, the US emerged as South Korea's top foreign investment destination, capturing 43.7% of total overseas investments. This trend exemplifies a strategic pivot as South Korean firms seek to capitalize on US initiatives like the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS and Science Act. Meanwhile, the share of Chinese tourists visiting South Korea, once a significant economic boon, has also dwindled, highlighting a shift in the bilateral relationship. One of the most significant catalysts for this transformation lies in the semiconductor industry. South Korea has established itself as a leader in semiconductor manufacturing, with companies like Samsung and SK Hynix at the forefront. Despite the fact that over half of South Korea's semiconductor exports still go to China, this dependency is misleading. Chinese firms are purchasing these semiconductors out of necessity as they remain technologically behind South Korean counterparts. U.S. sanctions against China further solidify this interdependence, creating opportunities for South Korean companies to gain a competitive edge. The historical context reveals that South Korea's shift away from dependency on China has roots in previous encounters with economic coercion. Following the deployment of the THAAD missile defense system in 2016, China retaliated with informal sanctions that ultimately failed to sway South Korean policy. This experience taught South Korean leaders that they could withstand pressure from Beijing. Consequently, the country has adopted a bolder stance, publicly aligning with Western nations on contentious issues such as the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic and human rights concerns in Xinjiang. Looking ahead, South Korea's ability to navigate its relationships with major powers like the US and China will be critical. The government recognizes that while it benefits from economic ties with China, it must not compromise its strategic interests. This nuanced approach could serve as a model for other middle powers seeking to assert their influence without capitulating to larger economies. Countries like Australia, Japan, and Germany, each with unique economic strengths, may find inspiration in South Korea's strategy of leveraging economic interdependence to maintain agency in international relations. In conclusion, As the global geopolitical landscape continues to evolve, South Korea is poised to play a pivotal role in shaping the dynamics between East and West. Its ability to balance relationships with both the US and China while fostering its own economic independence illustrates a newfound strength that may redefine power structures in the region. As South Korea continues to assert its interests on the world stage, the implications for international relations will be profound, ushering in a new era of middle power diplomacy.